This is the intersection of faith and the culture. Welcome to WallBuilders Live, where we're taking on the hot topics of the day from a biblical, historical, and constitutional perspective. Thanks for joining us on this first radio day for us of the new year. 2022 is going to be amazing, and we are thrilled that you're kicking it off with us. Here at WallBuilders Live, we take on all these hot topics of the day, but we look at them from that biblical, historical, and constitutional perspective because that's how you find truth. And we want to just roar into 2022 with truth and courage. It's part of what David Barton teaches in our biblical citizenship class, and so thankful for the leadership and the training and all of the historical preparation for such a time as this. 2022 is going to be a huge year, a major turning point in the culture of America. Will we return to those foundational, timeless principles of liberty, those biblical principles that the nation was founded upon, or will we continue this march towards totalitarianism, towards Marxism, towards government control? We got a big question to ask all throughout this year as we look at the elections that are coming, as we look at policies that are going to be considered. Who decides? Two-word question, very simple. Who decides? And I hope that we are starting to realize that when government makes the decision, bad things happen. We saw so much of that with the whole COVID stand, the COVID crackdowns, whatever you want to call it. No question, the government controls made the situation far, far worse, cost lives, jobs, freedom, all of those things. And the answer to who decides, most of the time, should be the individual. Sometimes, yes, government should be making certain decisions. That's why we talk so much about jurisdictions here on WallBuilders Live. We talk about the proper role of government. We talk about the proper role of the individual, the proper role of different levels of government, federal, state, local, all of those things. So anyway, I just want to kind of start 2022 with you thinking about the fact that it's going to be such an impactful year, but it still requires us to come back to those founding principles. And that's why today we're going to kick off the year with former Congressman Bob McEwen. I love Bob McEwen. He has so much wisdom, and he has such a gift at explaining what are, sometimes difficult ideas and concepts or processes dealing with government or whatever it might be. He somehow, I don't know he just has a gift of taking those things and teaching them in a simple way where even a country boy like me can understand them. So I absolutely love Bob McEwen, and we're going to spend the first 3 days of our radio year with you, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of this week, listening to Bob McEwen as he was teaching at the ProFamily Legislators Conference just a couple of weeks ago. And so we'll carry that to you today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. It'll all be available at our website, wallbuilderslive.com, but it's going to be a great way to start the year. By the way, my name is Rick Green. I'm a former Texas legislator and America's Constitution coach. And normally here on the program, it's David Barton and Tim Barton. But we're going to be doing this program from the ProFamily Legislators Conference, where David and Tim bring folks in from all over the nation. These are legislators, state reps, state senators, sometimes members of Congress, and have all kinds of great speakers. I mean, people that really encourage them, challenge them, help them to share ideas and to go back to their state legislatures and take those ideas into their states. And it's just a great weekend. We call it the ProFamily Legislators Conference, and you should encourage your legislator to go to that. We try to bring as much of that to you here at WallBuilders Live as we can. We have shared several of those programs during the last few weeks of 2021, and we might have a few more for you in these early weeks of 2022, but we'll just kind of see how that works out. We got a lot of great interviews coming up as well, and of course, going into 2022, we're looking forward to those Foundations of Freedom Thursday programs where your questions will be answered with regard to constitutional questions or founding principles or whatever you got. Send it to us to radio@wallbuilders.com, and we'll get to those on one of our Thursday programs. And then Friday. I think that's everybody's favorite program of the week because it's Good News Friday, and David and Tim are gearing up for a lot of good news to be shared in 2022. So I just want to say Happy New Year to everybody. Looking forward to a fantastic 2022. Whatever comes our way, we're going to apply those biblical, historical, and constitutional principles. We're going to stand our ground. We're going to stand for truth. We're going to have the courage to do so. We're going to speak it. We're going to speak it in love, but boy, are we going to speak it, and we're going to get you to do the exact same thing. If you want to start off the year at our website, wallbuilderslive.com, making a donation, that would be great as well. That means we can speak that truth to more and more people. So visit wallbuilderslive.com today. Let's head over to the ProFamily Legislators Conference. Here is Bob McEwen.
From Adam and Eve up until a certain day, slavery was ubiquitous. It was every place, all the time. There was one day in which it all changed. That day was July 4th, 1776, when 56 Americans said, from this day forward, we hold these truths to be self-evident. And from that day forward, slavery has been anathema. And people have been, of course, the Democrat Party has been pushing it and fighting for it and trying to keep it and trying to sell it today and all. But it didn't change everybody's hearts, but it said it was wrong. And the idea that clear back here 100 years before George Washington was even born, that somehow or another America had anything to do with that. And I think, how in the world could anybody fall for such nonsense? And David pointed out, they don't even know that Abraham Lincoln was president of the United States. They've never heard of Lexington and Concord. They don't know squat from Shinola. So that's how they can teach this sort of thing. And here's the important part that I got lots to say before I start. And that is that that truth overcomes error. And therefore, we don't need to fear. Because I was having breakfast once with Wesley Pruden and a handful of folks, and who was the editor of the Washington Times at that point. And people were saying, why do people keep picking on your little newspaper? Because in those days, it had a distribution smaller than the Cleveland Plain Dealer. And he said, well, he didn't come up with a real good answer. And afterwards, I walked him out to the car and I said, Wesley, let me tell you why. I said, the fact is that you remember when George Bush was president and the Al-Qaeda, he had a deck of cards and he had 52 faces of all the leaders of Al-Qaeda on it. And I remember one day that I heard on the news, I was campaigning, I can still remember, I was in a filling station, and I left the door open because it said that George Bush had said that Al-Qaeda is no longer a threat. And they immediately cut to the foreign minister from France and Villepin. I don't know why the president would say that. That's absurd, that Al-Qaeda still is a threat. And then on the news from then on, all afternoon, that's all you heard. In the lead story that night, George Bush says that Al-Qaeda no longer a threat. And everybody says, that's so stupid. And of course, every Democrat was out dancing around. Well, the next morning, the Washington Times put a little box on as to what had actually taken place. And what happened was that George Bush was in the Rose Garden. He'd finished his presentation and he was starting to walk back into the White House. And one of the reporters screamed at him. He said, President Bush, how has your deck of cards coming? And he said, well, 42 of them are either dead or incarcerated. Either way, they're no longer a threat. And so the Washington Times took what the New York Times had printed that morning, in which it said, President Bush said, the leaders of Al-Qaeda, ... no longer a threat. And that's what everyone else had done. Now, one newspaper, one little Washington Times, put the New York Times quote, and then underneath it put the actual full quote without the ... And you could see, well, Fox felt obligated to run that every 15 minutes on their news loop, and Rush Limbaugh felt obligated to talk about it for about 3 hours, and by the end of the day, truth. You had PBS, you had ABC, you had NBC, you had Reuters, you had everybody in the world printing this lie, but the truth overcomes error. And so what we can take confidence in is not whether we own all these places, but that presentation by Tim is truth. And let him challenge it, let him question it, and then let that little red-haired New York Times woman explain to us why you didn't talk about any of these people. What's your two phrases? I just always say stupid, but you say ignorant or intentional. Are you intentionally ignorant? Yeah, I got it. So let us begin. What I want to touch on, and my little part in this effort, is that America is the greatest nation on earth, and there's a reason for it. And it's important that we understand. And WallBuilders has a presentation called Politics Easy as Pie. That is, politics equals integrity, which is the term for righteousness or right and wrong, or it's the standard by which people can work together. Because if my definition of, if I'm trying to build a house and my ruler is 13 inches and yours is 15 and somebody else's is 8, it's not going to work. So there has to be a standard, and our integrity plus economics. Now, so we're focusing on the religious heritage primarily, but it's also essential that we discuss the economics of it just a bit also. So, because those are the only two dials that you turn. I don't care if you're running in Boston or Baghdad or Belgrade. The thing that you decide is the integrity. how many lawyers you have to write the contract, how many bars you have to put on the window, how many people you have to bribe to get your products to the market, how much you have to pay off the union to get it loaded on the dock. The integrity, the higher the integrity, and then taxes, the economics, the lower the burden of government, the greater the wealth.
Hey, quick break, everybody. We'll be right back. You're listening to Bob McEwen speaking at the ProFamily Legislators Conference, and you're listening to it right here on WallBuilders Live.
This is David Barton with another moment from America's history. How should we respond if confronted with frustration and conflict? The proper response was given over 200 years ago in a lengthy speech when Benjamin Franklin told the delegates at the Constitutional Convention, "In this situation of this assembly, groping as it were in the dark to find political truth, how has it happened, sir, that we have not hitherto once thought of humbly applying to the Father of lights to illuminate our understanding? Have we now forgotten that powerful friend? Or do we imagine we no longer need his assistance? God governs in the affairs of men. I therefore move that henceforth prayers imploring the assistance of heaven and its blessings on our deliberations be held in this assembly every morning before we proceed to business." Benjamin Franklin knew that prayer was the proper response.
For more information on God's hand in American history, contact WallBuilders at 1-800-8-REBUILD.
We're back on WallBuilders Live. Thanks for staying with us today. We're listening to Bob McEwen give a presentation at the ProFamily Legislators Conference. Can't think of a better way to kick off the year. Knowing our principles and knowing what produces freedom is going to be so important in 2022 as we return to those principles. So let's return to the ProFamily Legislators Conference. Here's Bob McEwen.
The lower the integrity, the more of the corruption you have to mess with in New York or Boston, and the lower the integrity, and the higher the burden of government, the greater the poverty. And that's all you do. That's all politics is about, how you turn those two dials. And if one doesn't understand it, then they lecture about all these things. But so it's important that we understand the integrity part, but I want to focus on the economics part just a bit. Because only 4% of the population of the world are able to call themselves Americans. And yet every year, that little 4% writes more books, more plays, more symphonies, more copyrights, more inventions than the other 96% combined. And so I want to keep asking why. For thousands of years, people had hoped to someday fly, as there's a good Ohio boys, my congressional district, by the way, who invented the airplane. My great uncle was their bookkeeper. And Orville just died in 1947. That's right, Americans decided that there could be an airplane and invented the light bulb and the television. So when you see an airplane flying, it has tires on it. Why? Because an American named Charlie Goodyear invented the vulcanization process for rubber. And inside of there is air conditioned. Why? Because Willis Carrier, an American, invented the air conditioner. It has lights flashing. Why? Because Thomas Edison invented the light bulb. The list goes on and on and on. Why is it that this place and not the rest of the world? There are skyscrapers all over the planet. Why? Because an American named Elisha Otis from Vermont invented the safety elevator. And as I said, there are places where it's 100 degrees because air conditioning made it possible. Because Americans, if a ship is attacked on the high seas, has happened over 300 times every year, to whom can those people appeal? Whether they be a yacht in the Caribbean, or they be a trawler in the South China Sea, or whether they be a British tanker in the Straits of Hormuz, to whom can they appeal for righteousness and protection? Only the 327,000 Americans who wear the uniform of the United States Navy. America is the standard for righteousness in the world. If a person tries to, some rogue dictator wants to counterfeit money and try to upset the financial system, who's going to stop him? The American banking system will lock him out, lock, stock, and barrel, just like Donald Trump did to the Iranians. The reason that the world is stable is when there is a strong America. Now, no nation has ever become the premier nation on earth, but what it didn't seek it. It knew what it had to do to get there. It fought to get there. When the French finally defeated the Spanish, the British defeated the French. When the Peloponnesians were defeated by the list, they knew what they had to do to get there, and they knew what they had to say, with a single exception of the United States of America, who didn't ask for it. didn't seek it, doesn't necessarily enjoy it, wouldn't complain if it went away. And yet no nation has handled it as respectfully as this nation has. We know about the War of 1812. What was the War of 1812? The War of 1812 was that Britain wanted to stop Napoleon. And in the process, it needed soldiers. And so they were the strongest nation on earth. So they could sail up to a ship and say, we would like to have this ship. We're now going to put it in our Navy, and you're going to put on our uniform, and we're going to impress the seamen, and now you work for us. That's what a powerful nation can do and has throughout all of history. The United States never, ever did that. The United States, they knew that I don't care if you're an Iraqi soldier and you're being attacked in the Iraq War, you knew that they went over and surrendered to CNN people, and just because they were Americans. they didn't know how risky that was, CNN, but nevertheless, because they know who Americans are. They know what they are.
All right, folks, got to interrupt for a quick break. Stay with us. You're listening to WallBuilders Live.
Hey guys, we want to let you know about a new resource we have at WallBuilders called The American Story. For so many years, people have asked us to do a history book to help tell more of the story that's just not known or not told today, and we would say very providentially, in the midst of all of the new attacks coming out against America, whether it be from things like the 1619 Project that say America is evil and everything in America was built off slavery, which is certainly not true, or things like even the Black Lives Matter movement, the organization itself, not the statement Black Lives Matter, but the organization that says we're against everything that America was built on, and this is part of the Marxist ideology. There's so many things attacking America. Well, is America worth defending? What is a true story of America? We actually have written and told that story, starting with Christopher Columbus, going roughly through Abraham Lincoln. We tell the story of America not as the story of a perfect nation or a perfect people, but the story of how God used these imperfect people and did great things through this nation. It's a story you want to check out. WallBuilders.com, The American Story.
Welcome back to WallBuilders Live. We're going to dive right back in with Congressman Bob McEwen speaking out at the ProFamily Legislators Conference. Here's Congressman McEwen.
Our daughter was in Rwanda, and Rwanda had a democracy. And as you know, the word democracy does not appear in any of our founding documents nor any of the constitutions of the 50 states, because under a democracy, rights come from the majority. We democratically elect people to our republic for which it stands, but so therefore we blur the use of the word democracy. But in a democracy, power comes from the majority. 80% are Hutu, 20% are Tutsi, 80% can vote to kill the 20%, and they did. And over a course of 90 days with machetes, they chopped 1 million people into pieces. As they were trying to restore that, Americans came in to help straighten the things out, and our daughter was there, and we were out visiting. We went out as far as the road could go, and then we went back a path in the middle of Africa and crossed a river on a log, a tree that they'd laid across and we're out in the middle of nowhere. And these little children come up with their plastic bottles and start following us. I said, where are they going? He said, they're going to the fountain. So we go clear back to the fountain, the only clean water in the area. As the clean water, it says, and this is a gift of the people of the United States of America. There is no nation that has ever done what we've done, never in the history of mankind. Has one nation give blood and treasure for the freedom and independence of another and never ask anything in return? Only Americans. Why? Because it's a righteous nation. Everybody knows that it stands for what's right. So in the course of this, that's the integrity part. Now we have to talk about the free enterprise part, because those two things made it such that this nation has created wealth out of all proportion. We like to talk about poverty. We love to tell how great poverty is. And what's our definition of poverty? One of the examples, I represent Appalachia, so we know what the Ozarks are like. We'd like to go down to Arkansas and black and white pictures, take pictures of people sitting on the porch there, and isn't it horrible, people living under these conditions? Well, let's take Arkansas. The GDP, the gross domestic product, the goods and services produced from the state of Arkansas is larger than the 6th largest nation on earth, 230 million people. That's our definition of poverty. If Britain were to become a state of the Union, it would be the 50th poorest state in the Union. Only Mississippi would have a lower per capita income than Britain would. our definition of poverty is such that if you come to this country, you we get Biden sends a bus for you, and they come here, sit down on a park bench, sit and gripe and groan and complain about the country. We will bury you with stamps for food, a roof over your head, a bed to sleep in, unlimited health care for you and anybody you've ever met, unlimited education. A person living in poverty in America, it's not my opinion. This is the Rector study done every 24 months by the Heritage Foundation and the Wall Street Journal. A person living in poverty in America is more likely to have a telephone, a television, an air conditioner, an automobile, eats more meat, and has more square footage space than the average resident of the second richest spot on earth, Western Europe. So this whole idea, 3.5 million Oklahomans produce more wealth every year than 91 million Filipinos. Why? Because that's what we want to talk about, and we need to understand it. And if we don't, then we're liable to elect people who want to fundamentally change America, and then there's no place else for us to go. But we were in Indonesia, fourth largest, same population as the United States, by the way. GDP not much larger than Louisiana's. And as we were leaving the embassy, the ambassador shouted at us. He said, "Watch for people who are standing along the highway for seemingly no reason. They'll heave bricks at American cars when they go by." Why? Let me explain. Indonesia's socialist.
All right, friends, one more break today. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Bob McEwen on WallBuilders Live. Have you noticed the vacuum of leadership in America? It's not just that we have a few bad leaders taking us away from our founding principles and down a road to destruction. The real challenge is that we're looking around for leaders of principle to step up, and too often, no one is there. This is a generational challenge, and we must have a generational solution. God is raising up a generation of young leaders with a passion for impacting the world around them. They're crying out for the mentorship and leadership training they need, and we need to equip them for the purpose God has laid on their hearts. Patriot Academy was created to meet that need. You, the listeners of WallBuilders Live, have supported Patriot Academy over the years. You've sent your children and grandchildren to the program, and the results have been remarkable. Patriot Academy graduates now serve in state capitals around America, in the halls of Congress, in business, in the film industry, in the pulpit, and every area of the culture. They're leading effectively and impacting the world around them. Patriot Academy is now expanding across the nation, and now's your chance to experience this life-changing week that trains champions to change the world. Visit patriotacademy.com for dates and locations. Our core program is still for young leaders 16 to 25 years old, but we also now have a citizen track for adults. So visit the website today to learn more. Help us fill the void of leadership in America. Join us in training champions to change the world at patriotacademy.com. Welcome back to WallBuilders Live. We're going to jump right back in with Congressman McEwen over at the ProFamily Legislators Conference.
In a socialist country, what is that? Government control of the tools of production. So an American car is expensive. How could you afford an expensive car? Well, you had to be in business. Who has to be in business? Somebody who has a government, has a relationship. So therefore, the person who's riding along, walking along, he sees a rich person going by in an American car. He knows that that person has money because he has a relationship with the government. That's what socialism is. Therefore, they hate the rich. That's you and I. If we go to Mexico, you and I can't go in the oil business in Mexico. We can't go in the grocery business. We can't go in the trucking business. We can't go in the pipeline business. We can't go into business at all in Mexico. Why? Because it's socialist government control. And so you have very wealthy people who have deals with the politicians, who then have the certificates to do those various businesses, and everybody else lives in utter poverty. That's the way socialism works. So they're willing to walk over cut glass and barbed wire and float in leaky boats just to get to America. You can float into the Long Beach harbor on 8 o'clock in the morning from Vietnam. You can own 3 7-Elevens by midnight in America.
Okay, friends, we're out of time for today. We're going to pick up with Congressman McEwen tomorrow, and then we'll get the conclusion on Wednesday. Hope that you have a fantastic your first Monday of 2022. We're doing this year right. We're asking for the Lord's guidance, asking for God's will in our lives. here at WallBuilders Live, over at Patriot Academy, over at the American Journey Experience with Mercury One, all the different groups that we're working with to help restore America's constitutional republic. And we're asking you to come alongside us in 2022, be a part of the solution. In fact, a great way to kick off the year, start a Constitution class right there in your community. Bring biblical citizenship into your home or your church. Be the catalyst for restoring those constitutional principles, for restoring those biblical values. It's entirely free. We give it away at our website right there at biblicalcitizens.com. That's the website to sign up, take the class for free, become a coach for free. Or if you want to get a set of the DVDs and the workbooks and all that stuff, you can go to wallbuilders.com and get that as well. But I just really encourage you, kick off 2022, gathering your friends and family together once a week, talking about the solutions, getting the real answers, not just complaining about what's going on, but actually saying, okay, yeah, here's the challenges in America, but here are the solutions. The Bible has answers for everything we face. Let's apply those answers in our neighborhood, in our community, in our state, and in our nation, and we can restore those principles. Check all that out at biblicalcitizens.com. In fact, in that course, our special guest from today, tomorrow, and Wednesday of this week, Bob McEwen, has some great things to share in the biblical citizenship class. It's Bob McEwen, it's Charlie Kirk, it's Kirk Cameron, it's David Barton, Tim Barton, Rabbi Daniel Lappin. It's chock full of fantastic, wise folks sharing some really good things with you. So check that out at biblicalcitizens.com. Tomorrow, we will jump right in with Congressman Bob McEwen. Thanks for listening today to WallBuilders Live.
We stand undivided forever.